Hello, I'm Mayor Linda Jackson. Many of you have recently received a letter from the Village of Glendale Heights regarding the electric aggregation program. We've seen a lot of conversation on social media about this program, but we've also seen a lot of misinformation or misunderstanding of what this program entails. I thought it would be helpful if I asked our consultant, Sharon Derling from Northern Illinois Municipal Electric Collaborative, which is NIMEC, to sit down and have a conversation about some of your questions and concerns regarding the electric aggregation program. Hi, Sharon, and thank you so much for joining me to discuss our electric aggregation program. The question we receive a lot is, what exactly is this program?
Thank you, Mayor Jackson, for inviting me this afternoon. Great question. In a nutshell, the program is a way for the village to help residents to get the best and safest electric supply offer for their personal home. And the way it came about is in 2012, as you recall, voters passed a referendum and an election, as did millions of voters across Illinois, to enable the Glendale Heights Village Board to look for better rates or better terms for their personal accounts. But as you know, and we'll probably bring up later, it's an opt-out program because in Illinois, the law of the land, and a good idea, is it's about customer choice. Residents are free to choose.
Thank you. Another question we're asked a lot is, will our residents' bills and rates change at all? And once the program is over, will their bills go up that much more?
No, their billing won't change. They will all be charged exactly the ComEd rate. Now, to be clear, the ComEd rate does vary a little bit from month to month. It's in a tight range between 6.5 and 7.5 cents per kilowatt hour. But the program rate will be identical to the ComEd rate, actually down to the thousandths of a penny per kilowatt hour. And your program is 2 years, so I don't have a crystal ball, but rates have trended lower over the past 10 years, so that's been very good for ratepayers in Illinois.
Thank you. We've also seen a lot of comments like, I already have ComEd and I do not want to switch. What should I do?
Back to my favorite phrase, customer choice. So folks can opt out. But first, let me be clear. You're not leaving ComEd. ComEd by law delivers power to your home. They do the networking stations and wires that serve your home. And they haven't actually generated electricity since that monopoly was broken up about 14 years ago. So honestly, Mayor, that ComEd rate is a little bit of a misnomer. It's a rate set by a state agency. So you might be leaving a state agency rate for the Glendale Heights program, but everyone would continue to get a ComEd bill. But to your question, what can they do? They can follow the instructions on their letter and are free to take action to opt out.
Thank you. According to the Better Business Bureau, Elligo has had a very low rating. Why would we go with a company like this?
That's a really good question, Mayor. We looked at a lot of those Better Business Bureau complaints and noted that Elligo responded to a majority of them. Others were some clear misunderstandings about how electricity works. But what we give great care or gravitas to is the Illinois Commerce Commission, that's the ICC's ranking. They are the policing body over all suppliers. Elligo has to report to them. And they have a 4 out of 5 star ranking with the ICC. It's reflective of the actual complaints that are filed. So that's important to us. We interviewed Elligo about issues in the past and we're comfortable enough to put them on the bid list. So they've served about 20 other communities, just to name some from, Zion to Orland Park, neighboring Glen Ellen. So we've had some long experience, this is kind of a long answer, but long experience with them so that we were comfortable in spite of that Better Business Bureau.
Okay, thank you. What sort of personal information is being provided to these companies? And understandably, people don't feel comfortable providing personal information.
Yes.
So what kind of information goes to them?
Well, no phone numbers, no email addresses are divulged. And I referenced the ICC having oversight. Again, they're the policing body. So Elego is given a resident's name, their address, and their ComEd account number. And Elego has, I think they've signed affidavits, some strict policies about what they can do with that information, when they must delete it, and that they, of course, can't use it for anything else. So we're comfortable with that. But along that line, Mayor, just as an aside, we urge folks when they get one of those telemarketing calls, I get them too, never divulge your ComEd account number. Elego will not ask for it. We, your consultant, will not ask. ComEd will not ask. Kind of keep it private like you might your social security number. Imagine someone saying, Mayor, what's your social security number? You're not going to give that. And just as an aside, I wouldn't mention ComEd. And so there's not really much information, really no privacy in that. The addresses cannot be divulged to any other party, very strictly.
Thank you. I know the village has participated in a program like this before. Do you know how much we were able to save residents during this 2012 program?
Yes, Mayor, we actually tracked the volume of participants and power consumption used, your low rate versus the ComEd rate. The average participating resident and small business owner saved $193 over the 2-year term of your program. And as you know, for really no difference in their power supply, it continued to come through to their home. So that was great. And cumulatively for the village, it was over $1.2 million. So kudos to you and the board for having gone to the effort to do that for them.
Okay, that leads to my next one, which I think I know the answer to, but for all those out there, we did try to save residents money on their electric bills during this upcoming program, like we did in 2012. Can you tell us what happened?
Yes, Mayor. Every couple of years, we check rates to try to procure savings. That's the whole idea. If we can put money back into the pockets of your residents, that's our goal. We went out to bid and there were no savings. The lowest bidding was slightly above the ComEd rate. But I'll say kind of on the other hand of that, the ComEd rate has continued to trend lower over the years. So although we have not been able to beat the ComEd rate has been lower than even surrounding states. So that's been a great trend that's helped all of us.
Okay. Well, we've seen a lot of news stories of scam situations in Texas recently, along with a recent article from the Illinois Attorney General's office in 2019. Can you explain how this is different from what is happening in Texas?
In Texas, they do not have customer choice, deregulated supply as we do in Illinois, and it's under a very different power grid system. I'm going to go a little bit deep here, but we're on the PJM system. It's the Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, crosses 13 states. It's very heavily regulated, and I'll tell you that grid is very secure. If you'll hearken back to the 2014 polar vortex, we came precariously close to running out of power, and it was much colder for much longer than in Texas. We didn't lose power, but as a result of that, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission established some new protocols. We're all paying slightly more to ensure capacity. We have backup capacity called peaker plants. They're a little more expensive to run, but not hugely like you saw in Texas. So if we get near where we're stressing the power grid and it's looking dangerous, these slightly more expensive peaker plants located throughout Illinois are fired up I think they're gas, maybe some nuclear. And we have a very stable grid. So I'm happy about that. But you mentioned scams. Part of the aggregation program, ironclad contract signed by the village, reviewed by the village attorney. The rates cannot float according to this contract. They cannot change. When I say they cannot float, always within that ComEd slightly moving range. So we have, let me just throw this out. If there were some wind turbines that froze somewhere in downstate Illinois, that is not going to give us a brownout here because we have these peaker plants. And I think, I'm not an expert on Texas, but I think our system is far more stable and heavily regulated than what is happening in Texas. So I'm not losing sleep over that, and your residents shouldn't either.
Okay. Another question is, what happened with Ellico prior to 2019, and how can our residents be assured that they are safe and protected now?
There were issues with Elligo, as I referenced earlier. Actually, 5 years ago in 2016, they had hired an outside vendor that they discovered were misrepresenting outgoing telemarketing calls. We know that's a headache for everyone. We weren't working with them at the time. They discovered this, fired the vendor, went through the process of reimbursing all those customers that were, misspoken to, is a nice way I'll put it. In fact, they were fined by the ICC. They reported it to the ICC because they're required to self-report such mistakes. And that fine, they told me today, the vendor actually paid that. That part I didn't know. So there were some other supply companies that were swept up into this in a lawsuit. Elligo did pay a fine. They no longer do such telemarketing. They pivoted to what I think is a little higher quality, more stringent programs serving communities. So we interviewed them and vetted them pretty thoroughly before deeming they were solid, above board, and strong enough to serve our communities, because that's, first of all, important to us. Could be because we know it's important to you, because
yes,
it's important to your residents.
Yes, it is. Very much so.
Pardon me, Mayor. I think I mentioned that they had moved from up to 4-star rating from the ICC. So over time, they've kind of earned their time back. And I have a question for you as well. In this program, we understand that the village is now eligible for an annual community contribution because of its participating in this 100% green renewable energy program. So wondering, have you and the board begun to consider plans for how you might use those funds?
Actually, we have. The village board and I are committed to reinvesting those funds toward further green initiatives, like planting new parkway trees to replace those we had to remove due to the emerald ash borer, or use it for beautification of the village. And we are definitely open to any suggestions from the community, because this money will not be used for operations. We simply want to make sure it goes back into the community and that the residents can see what this has done.
That's great. And I'm going to just add what we've said before. There is zero added cost to residents and businesses for participating, zero cost to the village. And this is sort of it's not an award, but it's something you're eligible to receive as part of the program. So I think it's great that it's been restarted to help the community.
Well, I have one last question for you. And that is, if someone still has reservations or questions about this program, who should they contact? And if they do want to opt out, what should they do?
Some residents will receive an opt-out notice that will tell you how to email, call, or return a card to opt out. But to be clear, about half of your residents will just receive an informative only notice. They don't need to do anything. They'll remain with ComEd, but it's just to let them know that the village is doing this for them and they'll remain at ComEd. The net effect for both groups is identical. It's just an analysis of different styles of use, and the village doesn't care or track what anyone does. So to reach out for information, Eligo actually has a customer service number dedicated just for Glendale residents. The Eligo number to opt out or questions is 630-481-7053. And as you know, I'm Sharon Durling, the consultant with the village. Happy to take calls directly as well. Number is 847-607-1804. So any questions about Eligo? Now, I don't opt out, but if you have additional questions, solar panels on your roof or maybe you're with another supplier and want to know what to do, I can help you with that. There's also the village website, glendaleheights.org/electric ag, which is spelled with 2 G's. That's ELECTRICAGG. Hope folks follow that, but I'm sure they can find it on your website as well.
Sharon, thank you so much for speaking to us about the village's electric aggregation program. I hope this virtual fireside chat has provided clarity and answered a lot of questions for our residents that we have been receiving. And if there are any other questions from residents, please feel free to visit our village website or reach out to Sharon Durling of NIMET.